Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to basically tear down everything you thought you knew about getting rich. For generations, society has handed us this very specific script. We've always been told that to achieve financial success, you need a fancy degree, you've got to be some sort of math genius, or you just need to be born into the right family with all the right Wall Street connections. But what if I told you that building wealth actually has almost nothing to do with how smart you are and literally everything to do with how you behave? So let me ask you something. I want you to really think about this for a second. If it's not a lack of a fancy MBA and it's not a lack of secret insider knowledge, what is the number one thing that keeps ordinary, hardworking people completely broke? Well, the answer is incredibly simple, but man, is it devastating. It's ignorance and an overwhelming, constant urge to keep up with everyone else. Listen, if you're sitting there right now feeling stressed about your finances, feeling like you're just constantly falling behind, I want to say right off the bat that I completely empathize with you. It is such a normal feeling. But here's the incredibly empowering premise we're pulling straight from financial expert Morgan Housel today. Financial success is not a math formula. It is 99% behavior. And the absolute best part? Your behavior is completely within your control. All right, let's dive right into part one, the root of financial stress and the expectations gap. To really understand why we feel so broke, even when we're working incredibly hard, we have to look at the very root of our financial stress. Think about this simple equation. All happiness, financial or otherwise, is literally just the gap between your expectations and your reality. The wider that gap is, the more miserable you're going to feel. And honestly, here's why this is harder today than it has ever been in human history. Our expectations are spiraling totally out of control. 50 years ago, your standard of comparison was just your next-door neighbor. But today your comparison group is the most sophisticated algorithm on Instagram or TikTok. You're comparing your everyday messy reality to the highly curated highlight reels of billionaires and influencers. So of course, no matter how well you're doing, that gap is going to feel impossibly huge. So the crucial takeaway here is that every single dollar you spend basically falls into one of two buckets. On side A, you're using money as a tool to build a better, more contented life for yourself and your family. Or on side B, you're using money as a yardstick to measure your status and try to impress strangers. Chasing side B is a treadmill that literally never ends. You tell yourself, I'll be happy when I finally get that nicer car, right? So you get it, and instantly the goalpost moves. You pull up to a stoplight, you see someone in an even nicer car, and boom, the cycle of feeling behind starts all over again. And this brings up a brilliant point about the ultimate flaw in comparing ourselves to others. As comedian Jimmy Carr perfectly puts it, everybody is jealous of what you've got, nobody is jealous of how you got it. We see the massive house, we see the luxury clothes. What we don't see is the crushing debt, the 80-hour work weeks, the failing marriage, or the absolute extreme stress it took to get those things. We are basically envying an illusion. Okay, moving on to section 2, the Ferrari driver paradox and the illusion of status. This is a profound psychological blind spot that Morgan Housel noticed years ago when he was working as a hotel valet in LA. Let's walk through the exact psychology of what actually happens when we try to buy status. Step 1, a super fancy luxury car pulls up. Step 2, you stop, you stare at the car, and you think it's amazing. But notice what you don't do. You don't look at the driver and think, wow, that person is so cool. Actually, scratch that. You completely ignore the driver. But then, step 3, the absolute irony hits. You decide you want to buy that luxury car because you somehow believe that if you drive it, people will think you are cool. We buy expensive things to be admired, completely forgetting that strangers do not care about us. They just covet the shiny object and imagine themselves having it. Which brings us to section 3, rich versus wealthy, two very, very different financial states. Once you realize that nobody is thinking about you as much as you are, your desire to impress people just plummets. And that brings us to a massive paradigm shift. We need to completely redefine two words that society treats as exactly the same. Being rich and being wealthy are entirely different states of existence. Being rich simply means you have the current income to make payments today. It's loud, it's visible, it's the big house and the flashy clothes. But being wealthy? Wealth is quiet. It is the money you haven't spent. It's hidden savings, it's investments. Wealth isn't about buying things, it is about purchasing your independence. You can make millions of dollars a year and just be rich, but if you spend every dime to maintain a lifestyle, you have absolutely zero independence. And if you want proof, just look at the ultimate cautionary tale, the Vanderbilt family. Back in the 1800s, they were literally the richest family the world had ever seen. The heirs were given these massive billion-dollar trust funds on the day they were born. But guess what? They weren't wealthy in terms of freedom. They were forced into this suffocating social straitjacket, expected to spend lavishly just to maintain their status. Biographies show they were almost universally miserable, completely beholden to the expectations of everyone around them. And today, that massive fortune is largely gone. Having all that money didn't grant them freedom. It actually became a massive psychological liability. So how do we fix this? Section 4, Saving Buys Your Freedom and Redefining Your Bank Account. If the goal isn't to buy status symbols, but to actually buy independence, how do we pull that off? If you're sitting there thinking, look, I can barely pay my bills as it is, why on earth should I even bother saving 20 bucks? You have to completely redefine what a bank account is even for. If you view saving money as just some boring, delayed gratification, like missing out on spending 100 bucks today so you can maybe spend it when you're 65, then yeah, of course it feels useless. But that's not what you're doing. You are literally purchasing $100 of your future independence today. You are buying a slightly better night's sleep. You're buying a tiny piece of your future that your boss or the bank or a random medical emergency no longer controls. And achieving that independence is built on behaviors so simple it's almost funny. Step 1, check your balance daily. It literally takes 10 seconds and it cures the financial ignorance that keeps most people broke. Step 2, treat your savings as a mandatory expense, exactly like you do your rent or groceries. Step 3, apply the 10% rule. Look, if you make 50 bucks doing a side gig, save 5. If you make 100, save 10. Anything is exponentially better than nothing. And step 4, automate it. We are all flawed, emotional human beings. Setting up automatic transfers just entirely removes our temptation to spend the money before we can save it. All right, final piece of the puzzle. Section 5, the magic of patience, and why ordinary people can totally beat Wall Street. You see, every day, ordinary people can literally outperform the smartest minds on Wall Street because the secret isn't intellect at all. The secret is patience. You don't need some complex financial formula to win at investing. You just need to understand compound interest. It's incredibly simple. You are earning gains on your previous gains. If you make $10 in profit this year, next year, you're earning a percentage on the original money plus that $10. Over 30 or 40 years, average returns sustained over an above-average period of time create absolutely extraordinary wealth. To show you just how powerful time is over literally everything else, get this. 99% of Warren Buffett's massive multi-billion-dollar net worth was accumulated after his 60th birthday. No way, right? Yes, he was very successful before that, but the vast, overwhelming majority of his wealth came simply because he lived a long time and just kept letting his investments compound. He didn't interrupt the process. But to get those crazy long-term gains, you have to shift your mindset about market drops. When the stock market dips, people tend to panic. But volatility isn't a penalty. It is simply the cost of admission. It's the required fee you pay for long-term growth. Listen, if you want zero volatility, you put your money in a regular bank account and you accept super low returns. But if you want to buy your eventual freedom, you pay the fee of putting up with a little uncertainty. Bringing this whole explainer full circle, true wealth and happiness ultimately demand that we reset our internal thermostats. The brilliant scientist Stephen Hawking, who, as you know, was paralyzed by ALS at a very young age, was once asked what his secret to happiness was. His answer was amazing. He said, "My expectations were reduced to 0 when I was 21. Everything since then has been a bonus." If we can aggressively lower our expectations of what we think we need to be happy and practice genuine gratitude for the things we already have, our savings rate will absolutely explode, and that heavy financial stress will just vanish. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. As you look at your own bank account and the choices you make every single day, really ask yourself, are you maximizing your money to chase a status that strangers don't even care about? Or are you maximizing your money for how well you sleep at night? Stop using your hard-earned money as a yardstick and start using it as a tool for your own ultimate independence. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.